Yes, my daughter's going to turn it into a Valentine tree. She's going to keep it up all year, she said. I'm like, okay.
St. Patrick's tree.
Just to bring a little cheer. Cheer.
It could be a 4th of July tree.
Yes.
The start of school, hopefully, tree.
Right. Yeah, I went to a friend's house a few years ago, and he had a, it's for the
4:02, and so I will call the meeting of the Madera County Arts Authority into session and welcome online one of our board members, Mr. Wieland. So thank you for joining us today. And I don't see Mrs. Gallegos today.
She's also.
I do. She's celebrating Christmas.
Oh, how do I, is there a way I can? There you are. Okay. Oh, you're the Christmas tree. There you are. Welcome. Okay. Well, we have all of our board members in range here today. So let us get started. Are there any additions to the agenda today?
There are no additions.
Okay. Then please let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Salute. Pledge to the flag
of the United States of America and to the
republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members of the public may address to the board any item under the jurisdiction of the board but not appearing on the agenda. The board will not take action on any of those comments today. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board in public comment? Seeing none, we'll move to the public session. Item 4A is consideration of approval of the minutes of the October 26th meeting. Any comments? Any questions from the public? Okay, is there a motion? Motion to approve the minutes, is there a second? All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4B, consideration of the approval of the minutes of the November 23rd meeting. Any changes to that minutes? Any comment from the public? Is there a motion to approve? Motion, second?
Second?
Second.
Second by Cecilia Gallegos. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. On item number 4C is consideration of approval of the 2021 meeting schedule for the Madera County Arts Authority. This is something we traditionally do at our January meeting, and we have a list in our packet of proposed dates. They continue to be the fourth Monday of each month at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Our procedure has been in the past that we approve all of the fourth Mondays of the month for the meetings. And then if we desire a cancellation, we would do that. So is that what the board would wish to continue to do for 2021?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We have a motion to approve,
I'll second.
and Robert seconds. Any other discussion about this? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Well, opposed. Okay, I think you, Mrs. Gallegos, you got in there under the no part. So you're an aye. Okay. So we have our dates for our meetings for 2021. Okay. The major item on our agenda today is our fifth report from QK and from our consultant. And he has sent to us, and he and his staff have sent to us a rather complete draft of what they're going to be, what they've prepared for us according to what we wanted to have happen. This draft is for us to begin to look at. And then we're going to probably have a more thorough discussion after we've all had a chance to hear our presentation today and consider over the next couple of weeks any questions or issues that we want to talk about. So let me begin today by introducing to you John Quiring from QK, and he will initiate the discussion, and I think he has staff people who are going to be with us today as well. You'll come on up here. And thank you for coming. Okay with me.
I don't want to break the rules with anybody, but I have a little frog, so I need every bit of help I can get.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's why I look different.
You're tall, so we're going to accommodate that.
I know what that is. We're good. I'm just going to do some very quick introductory remarks and turn the short presentation over to Jessica Spills, senior planners. Today we're just introducing the report. You've all just received it. It's our final version, our final draft of the draft versions that we've been working on. And we'd like to just introduce it today. Jessica's going to go through kind of an expanded version of the outline and the table of contents and give some highlights. But our goal today is to simply introduce it into the process. We'd like you all to have at least 1 to 2 weeks. We would really appreciate any written comment. And then we can come back in February and have more in-depth discussion and submit it as a final report once we have all the input received from the authority. So with that short introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica for kind of a brief presentation about what's in there and what the contents look like, and answer any questions you may have today. We'd love to take some input today if you have it, but our goal was just to get it presentation made and get it into your pipeline so you could spend some significant time on your own going through the plan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, John. Can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, hello, everyone. Thank you for having us today. We are excited to present to you in this meeting the administrative draft of the feasibility action plan, which was included in your packet for today's meeting. So today, we would like to go over the main points of the feasibility plan and give you kind of an overview of the document and the main takeaways before you dig into all of the details when you do that comprehensive reading of its entirety. So, very briefly, I'd like to go over what we've discussed in previous presentations. This project began with interviewing stakeholders that are active in the arts community and also members or any MCAA affiliates. So that involved talking to the City of Madera, the County of Madera, the education community, and the Madera County Arts Council. The bulk of our work thereafter was in outlining and drafting the feasibility action plan, which you have for your review. Engagement was comprehensive. We wanted to make sure we had input from as many stakeholders as possible, and engagement will obviously continue as you read the document, and we can get the comments from you that we can address in the final copy of the plan. So let's get into what you will see in this document. I'm going to read the purpose of the feasibility plan verbatim first. Purpose of this feasibility and action plan is to provide a framework and roadmap to move the arts forward as a key element in enhancing the quality of life, promoting economic development, enhancing education, and celebrating the Madera community. So essentially what we've done is compiled as much information as we could regarding what has been done previously with regard to the arts, what is currently happening, what the current facilities for potential arts-related events are, and what the community would like to see in the future. So we've put that all together into this action plan, taking everything into consideration and having a full discussion of each. So this is an arts action plan, and we recognize that the definition of arts or art is extremely broad, and we intended to keep it as broad for the purposes of this document. So when we say art, we are talking about any form of creative expression, visual or performing, mostly seen or most typically seen in public spaces. So the executive summary will give you the main takeaways or conclusions from each chapter, and today I'll go through broadly those takeaways. Then we introduce the plan with some background information, the scope of the plan, ultimate goals. Then we reviewed and assessed previous visioning efforts. This was mainly the DOMA, or Downtown Madera plan from 2018, I believe, and the Vision Madera 2025 plan found in the City of Madera's general plan. So we did an assessment. We looked at the strengths and weaknesses of each. The main conclusion from this chapter is that Madera is in need of some small-scale, tactical, cost-effective projects that can get the ball rolling for other types of arts-related projects. Then, in the assessment of the current situation, we looked at what's currently going on in the county, and we mainly did this through an analysis of 8 current facilities. The main takeaway from that is we believe the facility with the most potential is Courthouse Park. Utilizing it for, say, an event or something would not involve the construction or demolition of any type of infrastructure, and it's already a public space that you can use. Next, we looked into current regulations. Like we talked about last time, we analyzed the County of Madera, the City of Madera, and the City of Chowchilla. We analyzed general plans, municipal codes, and any kind of other plans that we could get our hands on. And then we developed a methodology in order to be able to assess all of these policies with a level of objectivity. And then this is displayed in a chart in the chapter, which you can see. So hopefully by the end of the chapter, you can come to the conclusion that utilizing regulations is an effective way to promote the arts in the community. And there are certain changes in regulations that can happen tomorrow in order, or that can be implemented as soon as possible to start that arts process. The next chapter is called Reimagining Downtown Madera. This is a literature review of what urban theorists have written recently on placemaking, downtown revitalization, and public art. We didn't just look at what scholars have to say. We also looked at current urban designers and current architects in the field. But the bulk of this chapter, I would say, is breaking down the different types of placemaking that you can see in public spaces and analyzing the potential for applicability of each in downtown Madera. We then gave some examples of successful projects that have happened throughout the country using these tactics and showing how they have been successful. Because it's obviously important to look at what the theorists have to theorize about, but we also wanted to show that it is possible and can be successful. So that is the main conclusion, I should say. There are contemporary tactics that the City of Madera and the County of Madera can utilize to revitalize, and these tactics have been proven successful elsewhere. So the final part of the document, which is the financing and the implementation and action items and closing remarks. This is probably the most important few chapters of the document, because this is where we discuss the things that need to be done moving forward after an analysis of the past and the present. So first is the financing chapter. Here we give an overview of multiple types of funding sources that could be available to the MCAA. We look at lending opportunities, state funds, federal funds, public-private partnerships, and even fundraising opportunities. There's also a discussion of strategies to match those community needs with the particular funding sources that can be used for them. The conclusion from this, or the main takeaway, any projects that the MCAA decides to take on is going to require a funding strategy. There are multiple options, obviously, but nonetheless, a decision needs to be made regarding which projects the authority is going to take on, and then which funding options the authority will pursue for those projects. Then it's the implementation and action items chapter, and this is a discussion of just that. What do we do now, right? We studied everything, we looked at our options, what's the plan? So as I mentioned in our last meeting, there are facilities that are currently available for arts-related events right now, but the community also has some long-term goals for some things that they would like to do in the future. So for this reason, our action items are broken down into 4 phases. Phases 1 and 2 are short-term goals, hopefully to be accomplished within the next 5 years, obviously understanding that we are in the midst of a pandemic, so we recognize that it could take a little bit longer for certain things to get started, but there are certain things that we can start to get the ball rolling with. And then phases 3 and 4 are the long-term goals, the 5+ year range. A couple of main takeaways from this chapter. Firstly, we suggest starting soon, but starting small. As we've mentioned before, we believe that starting off with achieving small-scale goals is the best way to gain that momentum towards the large, more comprehensive goals of the arts community. The first 2 phases have an emphasis on policymaking, whether that's addressing potential policy gaps or talking about maybe having other policy documents, like maybe an arts master plan, something like that. And then there's also a huge emphasis on placemaking. So placemaking is, what does it take to take a place and make it go from, I don't really want to hang out there, my friends don't really hang out there, there's really nothing to do, I don't know what I would do there, to, this is the hot spot for the community on a Friday and Saturday night. This is where you want to be in your free time. So in order to do that, you need to change the perception of that space. So how do you do that? Well, it's 2 things. One, you need to give the community a reason to go down to whatever space, and then do whatever you can to make sure they enjoy their time while there. So then slowly the perception will start to change, the momentum will build, and the area can transform. And that's when we drive towards those long-term goals, right? That's where we bring in the long-term goals that are the bigger ticket items. Those are like, let's look at what we can do with the former Madera County Library. What can we potentially build at 209 West Yosemite that could show off our arts community? Or, all right, what do we need to really get the ball rolling with this performing arts center right in the downtown? We want you to start building the foundation now for those big ticket items. Our executive summary also has a chart which combines the main aspects of the final 2 chapters. The column headings are the main action items of the document, and then the row headings are the potential monetary source. So then we assess each source of funding with each action item and identify if it's a possible source of funding, if there are significant limitations or restrictions, or if it's not a good source to pursue at all. Then finally, we have our closing remarks, which is kind of the conclusions of all of the previous conclusions. And I just want to say there are 2 main takeaways we want you to get from reading this document. Number 1, Madera County has an arts community that should be celebrated in public spaces. And however you want that to look, that's up to you. And number 2 is that downtown Madera can become a revitalization success story. You have a lot of the ingredients to transform this area. You have a large group of people all holding different roles that want to see the success of the downtown. You have a general consensus that art is a great way to get people downtown. You have buy-in from regulatory agencies that can adopt policies to promote the arts. You also have facilities that can host the arts. And most importantly, you have energy from a community that wants to show pride in their community. Now, granted, you're missing a few ingredients so far, and we talk about that throughout the document. But please know that after looking at everything, we firmly believe that you have the ability, with some elbow grease, to make downtown Madera or any downtown throughout the entirety of Madera County a place to inspire a community and to give the community an opportunity to take ownership of their space. And then that can bring us to the goals of the purpose of the plan that I read to you earlier, right? You can enhance the quality of life, promote economic development, enhance education, most importantly, celebrate the Madera community. And we're excited to see you do it. So that is the gist of everything that is in the document. So with that, do we have any questions or comments?
Any?
The devil will be in the details.
That's the thing. So we want to give you the gist, the main takeaways, but it's, I want to say, a 90-page document. So, you know, there's a good bit of reading to it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I can also show you, because I mentioned that plan. So this is what I was talking about. This is probably the chart that we think you would get the most from. I apologize if it's too small and you can't see it, but here you can see the main action items that we've talked about. It's kind of the broad view, the action items. Except we also have one column here called capital projects allowed. And that's because the rows are the potential funding sources. So then we assess each, as you can see. Is it a source of possible funding? Are there significant limitations or restrictions? And obviously a blank means maybe you shouldn't consider it for that. I just wanted to show you that in particular, but that is it. Any questions? Are you guys seeing things that you wanted to see, at least in the overview of the document?
Any board?
I think it's a good start.
Mr. Wheeling? That was Mr.
I
Wheeling.
think it's a good start.
Anybody else have a thought, comment, question? One of the areas that I'm interested in is how much we're going to be able to fund ourselves getting started and how much volunteer time we're going to have to put towards it so that we can get into placemaking, make some of our early on activities happen.
Absolutely.
We have an arts authority, but we've been funding ourselves by begging from the city, the county, and the school district for some startup funds, but we're not going to be able to continue to do that. So if I'm looking at the potential funding options sheet correctly, would we be looking at some of these sources of foundation funds and corporate foundation grants, and some of those kind of things as early places we go to find support, monetary support for our work?
For basic, I can just address that a little bit, and I'd be happy to address it more at the next meeting. But for basic operational just support that's relatively generic in nature, you'll probably have to look to some type of fundraising or foundation-based support. That's the sort of thing where you can go, there's basically two large categories of foundations. There's what we consider private foundations, which are, well, generally they're viewed as wealthy people that put a bunch of money under a foundation head, and then it continues on from the Ford Foundation, the Packard Foundation, those sorts of things. But you also find thousands of companies that have continuously replenished operating foundations. They don't have an endowment built into them, but on a regular basis, they'll take a piece of the profits on a yearly basis, put it into the foundation, and those monies are distributed. Those are possibilities for the type of thing that you're talking about. Generally, you'll find that government sources of state, federal, or regional money that might be able to be used, they generally want to have it go to a program of some sort. That's sort of on the grant basis. If you have a specific plan for something that you want to execute, that's a good way to get that started. And sometimes you can then leverage that into some additional staff support that you can use for some of the things you're talking about. So financing gets complex, and it's going to be a task of putting together a lot of pieces. There's no one big massive pot of money in the sky. In the new state budget that was proposed, I just saw the preliminary information of all the billions of dollars, the California Arts Council was ecstatic because they got a big boost in funding, monstrous boost in funding. They were ecstatic of $15 million statewide for the California Arts. So, you know, when you consider that the revenue excess, I think that's sort of we won't get into the politics of that. What's a revenue excess these days at the state level? But of how many billions of dollars, they still have a ways to go in terms of that sort of general support for arts councils. There is funding, but it's a challenging task.
Maybe, do you have or can you think about the value of community volunteers in doing some of the first phases work, the startup and placemaking?
It's a great place to start. And the other value that a strong volunteer program has in the arts community or revitalization community is that if you do then have a concurrent effort to reach out to private funding through foundations or programs like that, oftentimes the more volunteer hours you show becomes a stronger case to be made for funding because they view that as an in-kind. So you're allowed to attribute a value to that program of volunteer effort, and you get credit for it, and it can oftentimes then leverage hard cash, which is what you're looking for also at the end of the game. So they can go hand in hand.
Other comments, questions from the board?
You've got the old library in phase 3. I think that would be phase 1.
I'm sorry, I missed the last of that.
I think the Arts Authority needs to have a home.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that old library would be in phase 1. You get that done first, and then you can operate out of there.
And that's absolutely a possibility. I mean, this is your plan. You guys can execute it exactly how you see fit. The purpose of putting the library a little bit later on is just because there are a lot of moving pieces that might be involved. We probably have to talk to a building inspector to see what exactly would be required to bring that building to, you know, ADA compliance, those types of things. That we were thinking there are certain things that you can see the result of faster than, say, the library. But that's not to say you can't start to get things moving on the library. We were just talking about, our suggestion was an emphasis on placemaking at first, just to kind of create that sense of space in the downtown area. But again, you can execute it however you see fit.
Just
And if
also
I can
mention,
add to that, I think, I'm sorry, John. In terms of low-hanging fruit, I think is probably the best, you know, analogy for a lot of the report is build, and Jessica's brought it up numerous times, building momentum, getting community input and buy-in. Because you've seen it with other, you know, I'm not going to say pet projects, but community-based projects like the Chaffee Zoo, where it may have failed around a community, you know, community tax or community, you know, funding, and then they repackaged it and it came back and it's passed 2, I think, votes for additional funding for the zoo. And you wouldn't do that without community support. And so bringing the arts to the forefront and building community support so that in the event that one of the funding sources ends up being a tax measure or something along those lines for a permanent source of funding, the community's already on board. They know where you guys are, where you guys operate, and what you guys have done within the community, and they go, that's a great cause. I want to support that. So from our standpoint, as Jessica said, there are some maybe more cost-effective methods to build some of that momentum. But from the big picture standpoint, I think the eventual goal is to have the community come out and support art in whatever shape or form they can in perpetuity, right? And that's the eventual goal. But small wins here and there will help build that community consensus for buying.
also just want to point out that those, although we call it a longer term goal, part of that is because it's a bigger ticket item, simply take longer to get there. I think if there was a consensus already around that an organization could look at that for a potential home, wanted to start that process. The reality is you have a whole analysis of the facility that has to happen. You have to have money for that identified. You have to get that put out to engineering firms. You have to have a financing plan put together, and all that will take a certain amount of time. So these other action items are things that can happen in months, weeks, and they begin to build an awareness of the arts and what could happen. And so that kind of builds some support, much like a school bond issue. The community has to be brought up to speed on what the needs are. And so while you may be planning in the background all the stuff you need to do to get to that, there is still a longer process. As the ticket gets bigger, the process just gets a little longer.
Did your team look at the plan that was done by the architects about renovating the old library?
Yeah, I believe that was a part of it. I know that I wasn't personally doing that part of it, but we went in depth through the DOMA plan. I know that they addressed it to some extent there, but I don't recall what the details were in terms of what they thought the cost would be in terms of the.
Yes, we addressed what was assessed within the DOMA plan. The DOMA plan didn't have as much of a actual price for everything, but they did address certain things that would need to be put into consideration, like ADA compliance. I believe some doors need to be replaced, things like that.
Okay. And there was also a structural engineering report with that said what needed to be fixed in the place.
Right. So I imagine moving forward, yeah, you could probably do something to go the next step forward to see what exactly can happen next and start putting maybe an actual price value to making those changes to the building.
What's the Arts Council pay right now, rent?
$3,000 a month. So we're just like throwing money down the drain. So we get a permanent spot.
Right, you've got money
Mm-hmm.
given to you for a
Right.
facility.
Mm-hmm. That's
Well, that money was specifically stated for the benefit of a cultural arts center, not a new office for the Arts Council, not something for a political body like the Arts Authority. So if we're going to spend hundreds of thousands, if not a couple, $3 million to refurbish a 1917 building, the public's going to have to buy into it. I personally would have a hard time trying to figure out how to sell somebody on donating money for that purpose when it's either going to be used like we're using, government center right now for a meeting once a month, or with Arts Council. And then there's the perception that, okay, if we get behind spending a few million to refurbish that old library for the Arts Council, then why do we need to do something else? Some people, I think, understandably would have the opinion that, well, why do they keep asking for more money? Even though there's a reasonable argument and a clear argument that we're talking about different things, that's not a clear message that can be made effectively. So what I heard today makes sense to me. I like it. We need to start small, inexpensive, but immediately whatever we do has to be for the benefit of as many people in the public as possible. I feel like I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Am I?
Yes, you are.
All right, okay.
Yeah, we're getting some feedback.
Let me see if I can do something on my end.
Well, that's the money that we're talking about, is the Arts Council's,
Yes.
which they can do what they want with. It's not part of the JPA's money. So the Art Council needs to think about, did they want to put all that money in the old library, or is it more feasible to build a new building?
Right.
With that amount of money, maybe get more space and get more of what you want.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the Arts Council.
I don't think that's right. I don't share the view that the Arts Council can do whatever it wants. The statement for the $2.55 million donation specifically said a cultural arts center. It didn't say do whatever you want. It didn't say build a new office space for the Arts Council. Now that's subject to debate. And even if I were to lose that debate, which is no skin off my nose, it still doesn't deal with the public relations issue of if the Arts Council has raised money in addition to what was donated to them, and they want to keep coming back, even though it would be the Arts Authority, not the Arts Council. That kind of confusion is a couple nails in a coffin already from a public perception perspective. I don't think we should be taking that kind of chance.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to mention that I'm not sure that Director Seibert meant that they can just take the money and do whatever he said that, but I think it was like they're in charge of the money, we're not, so, and I think that and you're right, Director Wheeland, it's we need to think about the public and the public trust and do what was intended for the money. I was just going to say, I don't think he just meant it's not our decision, it's their decision. But I also would agree that, we need to be careful about rehabbing the old Carnegie Library. I mean, it's a beautiful building, but we know that sometimes it's better to construct something new that has all the bells and whistles if we're going to go down that road, and maybe look at a site where the building, the old government center is going to be demolished here in a few years, and maybe make that recommendation something that's more accessible for a cultural arts center, because you look at some of these rehab deals that are being done for the homeless and for displaced, and some of the rehab costs are up to $500 a door for an apartment, where in a private, if it was privately financed in a new building, it might be $150,000 to $200,000 a door rather than $500,000 a door. So anyway, we need to be careful. Again, it would be really great, but sometimes the costs are going to just completely out. It's just beyond what is reasonable.
Well, when I got out of this thing, the Art Council was wanting to do something. And they had this money, and they wanted to invest it. So that was kind of the lead into the whole thing. But at this point, it's the Arts Council's money to decide what they want to do. And it's this JPA's decision how they want to leave art in the community. And you got to separate those two things totally. And the Arts Council can decide what they want to do with that money, how they want to proceed. But I agree. I mean, I agree with the concept that if we remodel that old library, it might cost us twice as much for the same square footage. For that kind of money, especially if we're using it as a government building, compared to private. So I think the Art Council needs to have that discussion within their body.
Right, and that's why I think this plan helps us identify potential funding options, because there's lots of ways to go in public and private financing, and they're pointing that out in their report, and that's where we need to think things through clearly about who owns what and how everything moves forward, because I think there's advantages in public-private partnerships.
And also reading some of that, most of this is in the city's territory. Well, the courthouse part is that county.
Yeah.
You got the county and city and the parks and
Well, the 209 property is
So-
the county, the library is the county, park is the county,
downtown.
but then we have Main Street as city.
So there's a lot of coordination there, conversations between the two
That's right. And I see that's why we're here, is to bring all the players to the table. Okay.
So who's gonna, who's gonna lead that plan? Who's gonna bring everybody together? He's got to have a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and that's that's part of phase one in the plan is assessing. We call it community partnerships and roles. So we have the understanding that there's a group of people that all want the same thing. We recognize that it will cost money to do some of those things. Who's going to be responsible for what, and who is going to have that responsibility to make sure that they perform their particular duty, whether it be leading the project, whether it be working on the marketing and social media to make sure that the community understands it. There's other things that need to be figured out. I recognize that funding sources is a huge portion to figure out, but there's also other things organization-wise that we believe the MCAA can do.
I'm going to turn it over to see if there's anybody in the audience that wishes to comment. If not, then I'll turn it back to the board. We're just looking at this draft for the first time, so I believe that we need to look at it a little more, take a little more time on it. And I believe that we should be sending our comments, questions, and thoughts to you.
Yes, that would be wonderful, preferably in writing, but we can hop on a call with you as well. We are thinking within the next 2 weeks, if feasible, if we can get your comments. That would give us approximately 10 days to make the appropriate edits to the document, because then we have the February MCAA board meeting. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, and then for our February board meeting, I would like to suggest that we consider having our meeting in more of a conference room kind of format, if that's possible, so that we can not have to look over our computer monitors and perhaps have a little more engagement discussion. Does that work?
If anyone's going to plan to attend remotely, it could be an issue.
So a couple of thoughts, and there are a couple of facilities at the county that may be able to accommodate. On the third floor, there's a large conference room, but I don't think it is equipped with tech like this. However, I think the DSS complex and public health complex does have a large conference room that is equipped with televisions. I've never had a meeting, a Brown Act. From the legal perspective, we would, of course, have to have it agendized similar to a workshop. As long as we have the location and the time, it can still be informal. We would just have to find a place, as Sarah said, that if somebody's going to be remote.
Can that be done by Zoom?
Yep, that's not a problem.
Is that something you do, or is that one of the other agencies that would be?
So we can use GoTo, Zoom, WebEx. The recording source isn't our issue. It's the capability. So we need to be able to have a room that has internet and the capability to provide one of those type of meeting sources.
Well, Chair, are you talking about a complete virtual meeting?
No,
Okay.
no. I'm just if somebody wants to attend and can't come sit in on it, and they want to come virtually, what option would we have that somebody could connect? And what I heard was maybe here, if we don't use this room, we have trouble with
Because I have to be
the virtual meeting.
so I need to be able to have a video source in order, unless it's just a call-in.
No, because today is WebEx, so it's kind of like Zoom.
Oh, can you? Mr. Seibert just asked if you can make it all in person and not do a Zoom.
That's entirely up to your board and what you want, yes.
Right, as long as your members feel comfortable with an in-person option given the pandemic.
With a large enough room, I would feel comfortable enough.
Could I ask our vast audience how you would feel if you were in a conference room? Nick's okay. Jim?
Do we really have time to take all of those comments, Madam Chair?
It's just two, but they're barometers for the community.
Oh, I think, Tina, I think you have to come up to the microphone.
Actually, if you just moved down here, then it would be fairly informal and we have a big room. And you've got all the tech that you want. The only thing that would be different in putting us in another big room is that you wouldn't be up behind desks and behind monitors. So if we can remove that barrier, the monitor barrier that you have, then what's different from here from some other room, and you have all the technology you want right here.
Does that work?
It does. The monitors push down as well. They push forward.
Okay, but does it work if we sat down there?
Yes.
Okay. I just like a little more proximity to the people rather than feeling like I'm above
We can make that happen.
the rest. And it makes it a little more conducive to our presentation and talking. Maybe I'm the only one that feels like that, but I want people to feel free to discuss.
I wonder if they could send me a printed copy.
Yes.
Like a printed copy of the
Yeah,
draft?
if I download this thing, I only get like 200 pages. A lot of it don't have anything to do with
Right.
it. Take forever. Right. System. So we could have printed copies of your report, maybe make a dozen of them.
Is that possible? Okay, and how would we access them?
Mail them to us.
I can barely hear what you all are talking about.
There was a question from the board, from trustee Seibert, about the difficulty of trying to download and print this. And so he was asking if we could get a printed copy.
You can mail it to us.
And
We can get some printed copies, and if the
Send it to
question
us.
about how to get them to you, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, we can work with our staff and mail something.
Or we could pick them up.
yeah, I mean, if
We'll
they
have
would,
some here at the county. We can get some. We'll figure out a way to do it. I just don't know today. I had the same problem. I wanted my copy to have a printed copy in front of me. My printer did a meltdowns.
I printed in such small type that, and light, that I really couldn't read it. So anyway, if you could help us with that. And if you want to just leave them here, we can stop by and pick them up.
We'll figure that out.
We'll work with Nick to figure out a solution.
Okay. Anybody else have a thought about that they would like to share? Okay, then we'll make sure that, is there anybody, we want to make sure that everybody who wants to get a copy can get one, and or has it on their computer so that everybody can look at it ahead of time, and we'll get our comments. Should we send our comments directly to you, Jessica?
Yeah, you could, does everyone have my email, or I can send my email out? You can email them to me.
Okay, it would be, what you could do is probably tell us when you got copies ready and where they are, and that will give us your email.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I'll be in touch for sure.
good, okay.
We can also include a card or contact information with your copy of the report.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else on this? We're going to move forward to the treasurer's report. Mr. Treasurer,
Thank you.
are we still in business?
We are still in business. Yeah, we still have I think we can pay our next warrant, maybe. No, we're in good shape. Yeah, in your packet, there is the treasurer's report. It shows has our income statement as well as balance sheet. And I'd like to also mention that we did checkers receiving a positive from the city of Madera in the amount of $29,920 last week. And we also have engaged the services of Ralph McInnes for our financial report. So he is a CPA. He works with Monty Schultz. We'll likely only need to provide a financial transaction report for the state controller, and potentially not on a full return, but he'll keep us posted in regards to that. But he works with a lot of government agencies and is well acquainted. So he may not even invoice us. I'm not sure, but that's even better, but we'll find out. So that's the treasurer's report. And then it looks like there is a action item on 4E2, and that's direction authorize a payment of warrant in the amount of $10,000 to Quad Knopf, and that would be the fourth installment.
Okay, any discussion, questions among the board members? Any comments from the community? Okay, then is there a motion to approve the warrant in the amount of $10,000 to Quad Knopf?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve that warrant. Any other questions? All in favor? Signify by saying aye. And opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4F is consideration of obtaining general liability insurance before engaging in activities central to the MC2A intended purpose. And our attorney has sent us backup information about her research on 3 different firms that provide that kind of service. Do you want to comment about that?
Sure. Thank you, Chair, for the introduction. So there are 3 quotes for your consideration: Alliant Insurance Services, Golden State Risk Management Association, and Special District Risk Management Association. So I'll give just a brief summary and recommendation for your consideration. So Alliant Insurance Services, their annual premium is $1,440 with a little bit of change. Their liability year is September to September, and that would be prorated depending on if and when the authority entered into a contract with this particular group. They provide general liability, while our JPA requires general liability as well as our recommendation of individual board member coverage. Alliant provides that service in this premium. Public official error and omission is within the coverage. Personal injury, auto and fire, and property damage. At this point, I think those are remote risks given the makeup of the authority and not having a facility or employees or vehicles. Golden State Risk Management Association, for a bit more, $1,500. Their year is July to July, so if we entered into an agreement with them, it would be prorated as well. The difference between Alliant and Golden State is excuse me, contractual coverage. So I think for the extra, what is that? Quick math, 560, you would be getting contractual breach of contract coverage with Golden State Risk Management. And then the Special District Risk Management Association is more expensive at $3,050 per year. July through July is their annual service that would be prorated. And also one other thing between the last 2, Golden State and Special District, they do require a 3-year contractual commitment. And I'm happy to answer any questions. That's quick summary.
Any questions?
Well, the last one, about double.
Right.
Why are they double? They offering more or
Not really. And that's, so I think
they're out?
I would recommend you look at the first two. It makes more sense.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you included the entirety of each of the three contracts with the bids or the cost for the contracts.
Correct.
Yeah, and that was part of the 221-page document dump that the first time I saw it in an email Friday was corrupted. So I have downloaded everything through the county website onto my computer, but because of my schedule the last couple of days, I've not gotten to it. And I'm not for years I haven't been in a position of buying contracts that I haven't read. So I'm not prepared personally to go forward.
Okay. Any other comments?
On the second provider, that extra that they're provided, necessary?
The question was, do I think the breach of contract coverage is necessary? I really feel as though that is what you have at stake now in terms of risk, not the auto, not the employment practice liability, not necessarily the personal injury or fire damage to property. I really feel as though this authority, the business that they have been doing is entering into contracts. And so while I don't like to recommend an extra dollars, if we do need more time hearing from Mr. Whelan, then I could reach out to Alliant Insurance Services and make sure that I didn't miss that in their package, because then maybe it's there. I just trying to distinguish these from you. It's not there, but I could call them.
What's the dollar amount difference?
About
$500.
$600.
Yeah, about $600.
Oh, about $600.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe better research.
Okay.
And while you're at it, I'm concerned about the 3-year commitment
Right.
that we'd have to make to that.
Golden State.
Yeah. And why the others aren't requiring a 3-year commitment and why they are.
Special District Risk Management for the $3,050 a year is requiring a 3-year commitment, but Alliant Insurance is not. So they're the cheapest or the most affordable, and offer the same, practically the same coverage as Golden State, but Golden State's a little more expensive, requires a 3-year commitment, and probably offers a contract breach liability. And any contract that we enter into with your vendors, we do require them to have insurance. But of course, if something happens, then it's a battle of the insurance companies and the lawyers. And so I don't want to put you in that position and not say it's not important. So maybe I'll come back the next meeting and answer those 2 questions or any else that may be raised here.
Okay. Any other questions you have for her to research? That'll give us a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
Member Wieland, are you suggesting
Yes.
you want to look at the actual contract?
I have the impression they were part of the documents, the 221 pages sent last Friday that I downloaded from the county website.
Yep. He was saying that it was corrupt. He wasn't able to open them up and review them prior to this discussion. And so he wants to vet them. So he does have them. And they are included in the revised agenda that was sent out.
Okay.
Well, I do have them. When I first received them by way of email,
Right.
the email was corrupted, so I went to the county website and donated. I downloaded directly to my computer from the website. I just haven't had the time to read all of that stuff.
Right.
The reason stated. So I have them. So I don't need anybody to send me anything else. You all have enough work to do as it is.
Okay. So you'll check on the 3-year commitment?
Yes.
You're gonna talk to the company? To
Yes,
see
sir.
what it would cost if they added that to their contract then? If they don't
I
have
am
it?
going to ask Alliant Insurance Services whether their offer includes, because I couldn't find it in their offer, contractual breach liability. And I'm also going to ask Golden State Risk Management whether they would consider a 1-year commitment because this agency is growing. And at this time, we wouldn't necessarily, we might need, yeah, we'll just see.
Yeah, or you gonna
It's
ask
sales.
Alliance if they don't have that,
Right. I'm going to confirm.
if they'll add it, what it would cost if they added it?
Or if I missed it, yes. So I'll come back with those answers so you can have a better information to make a decision.
Perfect. Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you. Do we have any member and staff reports? Seeing none, I'll call for the adjournment of our January meeting.
I do have some report, Chair O'Kane.
Oh, I'm sorry. Gallegos.
I just wanted to report and let everyone know on the Arts Authority Board that the City of Madera did purchase the property on Yosemite and E. That was the property that was burnt down, that was downtown. So we did purchase it. Escrow went through it. Now belongs to the City of Madera. We don't have a long-term goal yet, what we're going to do with the land. We just felt in order to control what happens downtown, we were in need of getting our hands on it. And it did go through, and it's great to say that does now belong to the citizens of Madera. Another good woohoo, it would be the downtown facility of the veterans and the low-income housing is going up as we speak, second story. So if you get a chance, drive by, take a look at it. It's moving very quickly. So that's what I have to report.
Great. I was down there the other day, saw it. It's going up 3 stories. And I for one, am really happy that the city bought that property because you'll have some ability to control the architecture of that property on that corner. So,
Yeah, we actually own the whole block except for Purcell's church, and I think that's where the old bowling alley was. And so in the long run, we're hoping maybe we can get a hold of that property and do something with the whole block there. That's our city manager's vision right now.
great.
What is going up on the south side of Griffin across the street? That corner to.
That's the low-income facility. Is going to be the same as the veterans, 3 stories. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other joyous announcements while we're at it?
So that's why Ms. Gallegos has a Christmas tree up. She's full of presents today.
Great. Okay, well, thank you all for coming and for your input, and I'll officially adjourn the meeting now.
Thank you.
Camera, you gotta hit